Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NCOIL One-on-One. With us here today is Ohio Representative Brian Lampton, Chair of the Ohio House Insurance Committee and Vice Chair of the NCOIL Articles of Organization and Bylaws Revision Committee. Representative Lampton, thank you so much for taking the time.
You bet. Good to see you.
Thank you. So let's hop right in. Can you tell us how you first got involved in public service?
I'd been active supporting candidates, working with some folks on campaigns. Um, I moved to Beaver Creek back in '95, and I got to know a lot of our elected officials through some friends, and just got very interested in it. And in 2000, would have been 2007, then State Senator Steve Austria was actually at that time getting ready to run for Congress, and he was a good friend, and he asked me to run for the House seat that was term limited from well, that would have been Kevin DeWine, and so there were actually five of us in that primary. I did not win. I tell everybody I came in second, which means I lost. Uh, but and I swore I'd never do it again. And no, I kind of didn't keep that that promise. Never say never, right?
Yep.
This past time, it was early. Another open seat due to term limits, and a county commissioner said, "Hey, you ought to think about running." And I said, "Yeah, I'll think about it, but I did that before, and I'm not I'm not interested if there's going to be a bunch of people, a crowded primary." Um, and so I started asking around, and you'd hear stuff. Well, so and so's going to run, and so is going to run. Well, I know so and so. I call them. I called three or four or five people that I had heard, might run. No, no, I'm not going to. One guy, he had the best excuse. He says, "No, my wife won't let me."
Fair
Um,
enough.
Yeah. And so it was very, very strange because in our area, there's typically two or three folks that are lining up ready to run for an open seat. And there was no one. And I had never served anywhere. I was not elected to anything. Um, so it was really bizarre. And I ended up having a primary opponent. The person came in very, very late. But we obviously did well there and got elected in the general. So, and I'm running for my third term. We have term limits in Ohio. We can run 8 years. Our terms in the House are 2-year terms. So I'm currently running for my third term.
Nice. Do you think that 8 years is a fair amount of time? Do you think it's too short?
Way too short.
Yeah.
It causes a lot of things. Problems with guys who want to be in leadership, want to be speaker, things of that nature. That's a short time, but mostly it's such a short time to get to know everybody, um, get to know the lay of the land, and really be able to develop relationships and become more effective. Um, I'm not opposed to term limits, but 8 years is it goes by so very, very fast. Um, I'd be interested in more 12 a year terms on that in that range.
So now that you're in, you've served a few terms, obviously, chair of the insurance committee. What issues have you been most involved in throughout your service?
Um, most of the issues that we see on the insurance committee and actually this General Assembly, we've got, I don't know, at least five, maybe six or seven bills from the last, so we're seeing them again. And I apparently that just keeps happening. We actually passed one, and it's been around for, I've been told, 12 years. So we got rid of one finally. And Senator Hackett, who's chair of our Senate Insurance Committee, also very involved in NCOIL, they passed it. So we finally, it's like, okay, we're done with that one. So a lot of them are health related, health mandate bills. Um, you know, we also in Ohio, we're a monopolistic state for work comp, and every 2 years, beginning of the General Assembly, we have to do the work comp budget. Um, but other than that, yeah, it's um, my expertise is mostly in property casualty, and there's very little property casualty stuff that we do. Most of it's health insurance related.
Interesting. So outside of your public service, you also own and operate an insurance agency. How
Mhm.
does that experience kind of both as a small business owner and then, kind of being an insurance agent, kind of
No,
inform
it,
how you
it
approach issues?
yeah, I mean, I'm a fully licensed agent. Obviously, I understand all the lingo and the terms and how insurance works, and it's been incredibly valuable in that. And then also having that small business experience, um, I'd love to see more small business owners in our legislature because you really have a full understanding of payroll taxes, income taxes, and all of the other things that go along with making payroll and running a small business. Um, pressures from OSHA and employment law, and all of the things that small business owners have to deal with. Um, and it makes when you understand that and look at your workforce, most of them work for small business. Most folks do. So, um, yeah, it's very, very valuable.
It's great. So as if your legislative responsibilities and your professional career didn't keep you busy enough, you also play in
Yeah.
a band and you announce
Yeah.
local sports games. How did you come to do that? Is there one you prefer doing the best?
Well, I've been doing the band stuff since I was in high school. I played in all the high school bands, a marching band, jazz bands, all that, and same through college. I love it. I mean, that's my release. That's my fun. We do classic rock covers. It's just a blast. Um, I got into announcing. I was my kid was playing pee wee football, and I love football, and they didn't have anybody to announce it, so I would, and I was just having a blast. And I thought, man, I'd like to do this to high school, and I'd heard that the guy that was doing it was getting ready to retire. So I started I didn't even know who the athletic director was, but I started lobbying everybody I could think of to get the job, and it was really funny. So I finally met the guy, and um, we had a chat, if you will. I thought it was an interview. Apparently, he had hired me before so I left thinking, well, I wonder if I got the gig or not. And I think I emailed him a couple days later, and I said, so do you want me to come back? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. You're hired.
So
Great.
here's your schedule.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and since then, I've been doing football for many years. I don't probably have 17 years now. Um, they had another guy that was doing basketball, girls basketball. He was retiring, and the guy asked me, "Hey, would the athletic director would you want to do basketball?" And I said, "Well, I don't know much about the game, but sure, why not? I'll give it a try." So I started announcing girls basketball. Halfway through the season, the athletic director called. This was a Friday, and he said, "What are you doing Monday night?" I said, I don't know. What are you announcing a game?" I'm thinking. He said his boys varsity basketball announcer told him he had to stop right in the middle of the season and asked if I could finish out the season. Sure, yeah, why not? I'll do it. And here we are 8 years later. I'm still doing both boys and girls varsity basketball. It's a lot of fun. It really is.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
So kind of shifting gears here, how did you first hear about NCOIL and how did you first get involved?
Um, Honestly, it was through Senator Hackett, who was also happens to be my senator. So Bob and I have been good friends for many, many years before I got into public service. And he did. He said, "Hey, I was vice chair of insurance my freshman year," and he said, "You got to come to these things." Um, okay, if you say so, Bob. So I did, and just started coming to the things. And I think my first NCOIL meeting, and I don't remember where it was. But it was, and it was distracted driving. You guys were just passing distracted driving, and I was actually interested in doing that distracted driving bill in Ohio. We didn't have it. And so when I got back, I talked to Senator Hackett. He and I talked at NCOIL about running it. He was going to run it in the Senate. I was going to run it in the House. Well, it turns out there was another House person that had already dropped the bill. And so I called her, and she said, "Yo, it'd be great to have you on." So we joint sponsored that, and we ended up using the NCOIL model. I suggested that we do that, so we did. And also Senator Hottinger, he was also a good friend, and he was also encouraging me to get involved with NCOIL.
That's great. So how would you describe your overall experience throughout the years? You've been pretty involved recently.
Yeah, I think it honestly it's just taken me a little while to kind of get the flow of NCOIL and how things go um and stuff like that. But I mean a lot of the bills that I watched. Something happened to my connection.
Feel good on our end.
Okay, good. There we go. All of a sudden the screen was blank and it said I was disconnected. Um I feel like it took me a while to kind of get into things, but a lot of the bills, the catalytic converter bill and some other things have been of high interest to me. And so yeah, it's been a good experience. Even the most of the things I get from it, it's very educational. We hear about what's going on in the industry, what things are coming up. Um, and to hear those different presentations from folks across the country is very educational.
That's great. Are there any issues you would like to see NCOIL take on in this year or the year ahead?
I don't. There's a couple of things that I've been sort of thinking about, and one is on auto policies, a thing called diminished value, and we'd have to talk with the insurance industry, and I have had some discussions with them about it. Um, we want to do it in such a way that it can be affordable, but that the policyholders can have some coverage. Is if they have if they have a car accident, right, and the car gets repaired, it's now on that report called Carfax, and so later, if they go to sell the car, it is now worth less than it would have been had there not been an accident, a claim, or body work. And so it'd be nice if the insurance company, and I don't know how they'd calculate it, this part of the difficulty, would be able to add a coverage, charge for it, and add a coverage called diminished value so that that particular situation, a policyholder could have some reimbursement, if you will, for the loss, because they would experience the loss. Now, they only experience at the time that they sell a car. Or if it's totaled. If you buy a car that has an accident, same thing will happen. The insurance will pay less because the value of that car is worth less. Um, so that's the only, I guess that's the only thing I'm kind of thinking about.
Interesting. So it sounds like we got a lot of work to do on that front then, and should be an interesting dialogue on that.
Mm-hmm.
So as you mentioned, Senator Hackett, Senator Hottinger, Ohio's had a strong presence from members of both houses over the years attending our meetings. Do you have any advice for legislators in other states who are maybe thinking about getting involved? Haven't heard much about NCOIL yet.
Yeah, I mean it because of the education piece, it's very, very important. If you're on those insurance committees, you don't have to be in insurance, but if you're planning on serving on the insurance committee, especially for more than just one year, if you will, um, you know, being involved with NCOIL, you learn so much, and it's everything's topical, it's current, and you can bring great ideas back with you. You may be thinking of running a bill come to NCOIL and talk to some other folks about it and find out that there's actually been a model bill passed um, to use to start with. So yeah, it's very, very invaluable. Not to mention the, over the years of being involved with it, make friends and good resources for you as you go back to your home state and legislate on insurance issues.
So speaking of legislating on insurance issues, have you seen partisanship having an impact on insurance-related issues as much as we see around other issues and other legislative bodies around the country?
In Ohio, most of the things we do in our insurance committee are nonpartisan. Some of the things are partisan. It just depends on the bill itself. NCOIL, I find, is very nonpartisan. The information that comes through, it seems like, again, the goals are, to work on whatever the issue is, to solve the particular problem. Um, like again, like catalytic converters, that affects everyone. That affects everyone's rates. Distracted driving obviously affects everyone. And so and but yeah, I NCOIL I think does a very good job as in that nonpartisan way. Obviously, in Ohio or any of your own legislatures, you all know what party you're in. Um, so at NCOIL, I don't know who's of what party. And that's good. That's fine. That works for me.
That's great. So naturally, we've discussed some of the positive things about NCOIL, but of course, there's always things we can do better. Is there anything you want to see the organization advance on or improve going forward?
I again, I think one of the things I struggle with was sort of again a slow start, if you will, to get to know folks. Maybe if there was something early in the 3 days that where the reps could just have a meet and greet, sort of a casual get to know each other um, social thing. You'd almost have to force us to not just stand around and talk to our own state people, but I mean, but to go around the room and or something that we could all just sort of be introduced to each other and have an opportunity to talk about, what are you working on in your state, and just some things like that as a way to get to know folks uh, that obviously sit around the big table.
That's great. Yeah, that's definitely something we're working on. So, in the
Okay.
spirit of getting to know people, we have a quick lightning round of questions before we let you go. These ones are
All
going to
right.
be real hard hitting. If you could tell us your favorite all-time movie,
Armageddon.
good answer. Favorite all-time food?
I wrestled with this one. Cherry pie or steak?
I don't know how you could not agree with that.
Right.
Favorite all-time book or author?
My favorite book is Good to Great.
Okay. Song or musical artist?
Elvis and the Eagles.
Great. All-time TV show?
WKRP in Cincinnati.
Nice. And last but not least, three dinner party guests, living or dead.
I thought about this one too. I've been playing music all my life, so I'd love to talk with Joe Walsh. And I'm a drummer, and so I would love to meet with and talk with Buddy Rich, who I think is the best drummer ever. And politically, one of the guys who I think did the best would be a Ronald Reagan.
All great answers. All right. Well, this wraps up this month's NCOIL one-on-one interview with Ohio Representative Brian Lampton. Representative Lampton, thank you so much for taking the time.
You bet. Appreciate it. Pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.